Welcome all to another episode of Turin Giants Presents The Scoop, your go-to resource to cut through all the Juventus transfer rumor noise and get a little dose of truth of what's really happening behind the scenes. My name is Zach, and as always, I'm joined by Frederic, from whom we get all these wonderful behind-the-scenes insights. Frederic, how you doing?
Hi, man. Pretty okay. Pretty hectic days and weeks that have been passed in Juventus land. So let's hope to get the folks some clarity they most desperately need.
Yeah, well, we do have a full itinerary today, but before we jump into it, we have to address something. Since we started this, we've received a lot of feedback, a lot of comments, a lot of love, but there's been one criticism that we've been getting over and over and over again, and it's that listeners just find it unconscionable that we have not used the Freddie Scoops drop in these episodes. And for folks who don't know what I'm talking about, our really good friend Farhad created this drop for Frederic some months ago. Let me pull it and play it for you. Here we go.
And now, Freddie Scoops with the scoop. He's the best in the business, see?
Now, I admit it is fantastic, but we haven't used it. And I guess, Frederic, since you are Freddie Scoops, I leave it up to you. What should we do? Should we incorporate it into the show more, or should we let it be?
Well, man, I'm all for the bread and circuses thing. So let's get the people to respond. Hit us up via DM. Let us know what you want. If the people are cool with it, hey, I'm cool with it. Give the people what they want, man.
All right. Well, the people I think have already spoken, and the DMs have blown up already. Where is it? So, look, we heard you all. I will do my best to work it in. Certainly, when we have some particularly fun and juicy scoops for you. But like I said, we do have a pretty busy schedule, or at least itinerary today. Let's start real quickly before we get into the player side of things, which is really our focus today. And Frederic, why don't you share us a little bit from the management front, what's been going on? Because I know there's definitely been a shakeup of names from the last time that we talked about it.
Yes, our good friend Tognozzi is out of the list. He's all but signed to Arsenal right now. I think the main motivator there was money, but we'll see. That basically means that our other friend Massara has moved up a notch. Contacts have been intensified with him for the role as Direttore Sportivo. So let's see what happens there. And also the media and every news outlet make it seem as though Igor Tudor, his stay will be permanent as per his contract, which I'm not sure of because my sources indicate that Tudor will undergo an evaluation during this World Cup, and management, and let's hope our management or our structure is then whole, will decide the outcome for the rest of the season. So it's not set in stone, the Tudor thing yet. So let's hold tight.
Now, is it a matter of as long as he doesn't completely blow it, he's staying, or is it where he needs to affirmatively show something in this tournament?
I think the main thing here to take away is the fact that there isn't a board yet, so there wasn't any unanimity about a new coach per se. So they were kind of forced to go with Tudor for the moment, but you have a pro camp and a contra camp, to call it as that, and I think they're just using this as a sort of grade, the World Cup it is, to see how things will move on. So never know. Also keep in mind that if we choose to part ways with Tudor, it's only a 1 million euro fee that we'll have to pay. So management will ask questions. Well, is this small amount? I mean, fairly small within the football community. Is it enough to gain a better coach? So yeah, these are all things that are still pending. So let's keep tight. Let's hang tight.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk players. As we've done, I think, every episode, we've started with our forwards. I think a lot of us know that moving Dusan, or the likelihood that we move Dusan, might free up a lot of money, or at least certainly on the wage bill. So that's where we start. We start with our list of forwards. And for those new to the show, we use sort of a temperature system, and cold meaning like unlikely to red hot meaning extremely likely, as to what's going on. So let's start with our good friend Dusan Vlahovic. What is the temperature that and whether he's staying?
Well, the temperature there is it moved up a bit, but however, there has been an official inquiry from Aston Villa, and the rumors about the possible Milan transfer are true. Milan are prepared to offer him 7 million euros net per season plus bonuses, give or take what will be 9 million. I don't know what these bonuses are linked to. So there are potential candidates to take Dusan off our hands. I don't care whoever it is, just snag him. But
I mean, do you think he? I mean, is it even realistic? Whether if I mean, it's true Milan's interested, great. Would he ever join them, considering they're not in Europe?
At this point, I'd say no. I think he's more likely to choose Aston Villa. Also, budget-wise, I think Villa can offer him a lot more than salary-wise than Milan could. But it all depends on whoever coughs up the transfer fee. Juventus has made it fairly clear they want between 30 and 40 million euros. His residue on the balance sheet is, if I'm not mistaken, 19 million. So, for Juve to say we want between 30 and 40 is very realistic. So let's see who, after an inquiry and after a positive valuation of the player himself, comes with that offer, and we'll see what happens. But I can't see it happening anytime soon, to be honest.
Gotcha. Well, we posted on our Instagram at Turn Giants that Jonathan David has given his word that Juventus is his top choice and he wants a deal done. Why then is his temperature only warm?
Because of the cancer that is player agents in this game. His agent upped his ante and wanted more. So whereas Jonathan David just requested a small signing bonus upon signing because he'll be transfer free on the 30th of June, his manager now wants an extra, I think, 12 million euros for himself to negotiate a deal for Jonathan David, and that hasn't been received kindly by Juventus, because the transfer fee in a total for a free agent would still be around the 30-35 million euro mark, which Juventus at this point deems way too high.
Yeah, and I think from the principle of the matter, that'd be tough to swallow. Certainly a lot of other agents would come knocking if you were to cave. All right. Yeah. Here's a name that was kind of hot for a minute and it's cooled off slightly. Victor Gyökeres.
Well, the good news about Victor Gyökeres is that we kind of feared the rivalry of Arsenal, but Arsenal made it very clear they're moving heavily for Sesko, I think. So that's a competitor that's down. But if you see at what he is asking in terms of wages, I think that this will cool down a bit, because for a player to receive in his first year at Juventus or ask for 8 to 9 million euros net per season, I highly doubt it. I think Gyökeres would receive those offers in the Premier League, and I don't think that Juventus are willing to pay that for him at this point.
Well, he certainly doesn't seem to be our top choice either, which is part of the reason why you have him at room temperature, correct?
True. And we'll get to that a bit later on, because there has been some things that have moved forward with another striker.
Well, let's talk about our two PSG strikers. First with Gonzalo Ramos, who you included on our last episode. He was warm in that episode, but he too is slightly cooled off back down to room temperature. What happened?
Well, what happened is that he was offered the same deal as Randal Colomani, basically a loan offer with an option to buy, and the player himself didn't fancy that much. He wanted a permanent transfer, or at least an obligation to buy. So and it's left there at this point. So we'll see if they pick it up again or renegotiate, but at this point it's cooled down a bit.
Well, talking about something, maybe I think the only red hot we're going to speak of today, Tell me what you heard regarding Randall Colomwani.
Randall Colomani had, I think yesterday, or was it today? I'm confused. He had a meeting via his agent with PSG directors, and he made it very clear that he wanted to stay at Juventus and asked the people at PSG to be very cooperative to make that deal happen. Juventus, on their behalf, basically asked PSG if they could renew the loan with the option to buy at the end of the coming season, which has been regarded as a good choice for both PSG, both Juventus, and both Randall, because he really, really wants to stay. And he's even turned down 2 offers, very concrete offers from within the Premier League. So that speaks volumes about his commitment to Juventus, which I like. And this is also one of the reasons why the Gyökeres deal has been cooled down to room temperature at this point, because all hands on deck for Randall's finalization of his Juventus transfer.
Well, that's certainly exciting. I've really enjoyed his half-season tenure at Juventus, and we'll keep watching this one closely. Now, Victor Osimhen has dropped off the list because that has just disappeared as an option. But we still have Retegui and Højlund on the list. They both are, as they were last time, as cold. Why haven't we kicked them off the list?
We haven't kicked them off the list because both their management are doing the utmost they can to place the player, preferably at Juventus, especially Højlund. It was one of his dream scenarios that he could join Juventus before he was given boxes of cash by Manchester United. And Retegui, the same. I think Retegui knows that he won't get any Premier League offers. And there has been some interest by a good friend, the chef Giuntoli, in the past. And I think his agent is hoping to rekindle that flame. But the price of Retegui, which should amount to 30 and 35 million euros, somewhere in between, is deemed too high, fairly so, I might add.
Gotcha. So currently, I mean, last time, Colomwani, we didn't have the update on him. David was hotter. But a strike partnership, or at least the options under a Tudor coach with Colomwani and David, I think is an exciting prospect. And I know we'll be talking about this further moving forward. I think it's a good time to transition to what current players we might see exit. So let's talk about transfers out. And the first name on the list is Federico Gatti. Why is he on the list, and why is he temperature hot, indicating that it's it's likely that he leaves?
Well, basically, we talked about this, I think, in our previous episode, the fact that Napoli was moving in on him and whatnot. But now also Aston Villa made a very, very, very decisive phone call. And the fact that Juventus basically denied his, 5.5 million euros gross a year, didn't sit well with Federico. So I can see him actually leaving at this point. But like I said, we're still awaiting our Direttore Sportivo. We're still awaiting the whole structure of the pyramid. That'll be our management, our board. So I think we need to see if somebody that enters that management system will have some love for Federico and maybe try to persuade the others to give him the salary that he requested. So it all depends on that.
So the next two names are two individuals that were heavily linked with other teams. Andrea Cambiasso, Man City, earlier on in the year, and then Douglas Luiz, Newcastle, or just a generic return to the Premier League. We felt it important to mention these two names for all of our listeners because there hasn't been much talk about them lately, correct? So where do we stand? Let's do Cambiasso first. What is the chances he leaves?
Well, the chances that he leaves are a bit, they have cooled down. I remember us talking in the Turin Giants podcast around the March era or even a bit earlier that, Manchester United, City would come in with this big offer. But City has their options at this point, and I don't see City forking out another 70, 80 million euros for him. And the lack of other concrete offers play into that because you heard the Milan rumor. There have been some talks and inquiries, but nothing solid. So I would rule that out. And if an offer isn't met that is deemed trustworthy by Juventus, and let me say, Comoli drives a hard bargain. He's not the type of let's sell Huizen for 50 million euros kind of guy, as opposed to some people that had that mentality in our past. But so I think if there's not a good offer on the table which satisfy Andrea and Juventus, then he might just stay. Of course, we are bound to extend his contract by then, but that's something for after the World Cup to see.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of waiting until after the World Cup to see, let's talk about that second player that was linked, or at least talked about with a lot of clubs, but there's been a lot of silence since. Douglas Luiz.
He has given, I mean, it's not like it's in its contract, but they want to see how he does in the World Cup because he came back to La Continassa in shape. He lost a couple of pounds, training heavily, dedicated, not so much injury prone as he was last season, but he still has to convince Igor Tudor that he's worthy of a selection. And if he gets those chances, and I think he'll get those, and he takes advantage of them, he could just be our new transfer in the sense that we haven't saw that much of him last season, and the things that we did saw weren't all that positive. So let's hope for the best, because I can't see another team scooping him up for an insane amount of money. So let's hope he does well.
Alrighty, last episode, and moving on. Last episode we had Di Gregorio and Mbangula on the list, and we have them still on this list and unchanged at room temperature. Has there been any new information about Di Gregorio and Mbangula?
No, not really. All those talks have been parked a bit because as the team at Juventus, or the board, if you can speak of them that way, they have now deemed this as a non-priority because they know they can sell Mbangula fairly quickly. There's no deadline that's luring them, and Di Gregorio is a discussion to be had about his salary. So let's see what our new sporting director says. Also, I'm sorry, I forgot. In our first slide, we have a new scouting head coach coming in, or head of scouting, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this to you via text or whatever. But yeah, so a lot of changes in the board. Let's hope they resolve it quickly, because we need to step it up with these transfers.
Well, let's talk about the last player. And it's kind of weird to talk about Chico in a transfer out situation. I guess in this case, we're talking about the likelihood that he returns to his parent club. Now, a couple episodes ago, we said that was hot. We said it's pretty likely he goes back to Porto. But today, we're slightly cooling that down to warm. What happened?
Yeah. Well, what happened was the penalty that gave us the Champions League. That was one thing that Tudor really appreciated. Also, the way that Conceição played that game. I think it was a fairly good game of Conceição. So he kind of reassessed the situation. And the fact that, yesterday's game, 2 days ago, my apologies. 2 days ago, he played a very good game as well. So all these things are taken into account now. And the fact that Conceição said that, I'm happy here, I like it here, but I just want to see where I'm at. Will I be given enough play time? So things are warming up a bit. We're not there yet, but it's warming up a bit. I think we'll decide once again after the World Cup to see where we take it from there.
Part of the issue with him returning was that Porto didn't really seem willing to budge on the agreement that was made last year. Has that changed at all?
There have been some talks back and forth, and I think I texted it to you as well. I think we're eyeing to get a discount in one way or the other. Maybe a loan option is still on the table, with an obligation to buy, because we have to add some water to the wine as well for Porto. But
Yeah.
things can be renegotiated, not in a broad sense. I mean, if they ask 30 million and we offer like 5 million, then it's not going to happen. But there is some wiggle room there, and I think the board is very keen to explore how that will go.
Alrighty, we've done our forwards, we've done our transfers out. Let's talk about some folks who might be joining us. We've got a few names from the previous episodes, but actually a lot of new ones on this list as well. Let's kind of jump into it. Leone seemed pretty likely there for a second, but things have cooled off with him as well, correct?
Correct, because he received salary-wise some better options. So it all boils down to his personal preferences and what team he wants to play. But make no mistake, the Juventus board and Igor Tudor are really hoping to get him in. They really see him as the next Chiellini, Barzagli, whatever you want to call it. So that's a situation that we're going to have to have a look out for.
So this is a name that jumped up recently, Coppola, and he is slightly hotter. He's at warm here. So when did this happen, and where do we stand?
This was I think it was today that I texted you as well about this. This is something that has been evolving in the past 48 hours. Why? Because Coppola is a very great talent, which Juventus had an eye out for a period of time now, which cooled down a bit. But now Coppola's agent reached out to Juventus himself, which made talks ongoing, and which made the conversation a bit. And the fact that Leone cooled down a bit made Juventus vision Coppola as the perfect stand-in for Leone. They if they could, they'd take them both.
Okay, I was just about to ask, is it an either or? No, it could be a both. Interesting.
The Juventus board now is really in their focus at this point is Italian players, like that strong Italian core, to get that back into Juventus, but also younger players with potential to evolve, with potential to become leaders within the group. And so if they're going heavily on transfers incoming, these are the type of transfers that we'll definitely see coming this summer.
Yeah, and I think what you said about Camoli is kind of like the Moneyball type director, and that looking for high value or high quality players that are going to be cheaper. And I think both Leone and Coppola fit that bill. Well, let's talk about someone who's probably not very cheap, but it certainly is an Italian, well-known Italian player that has just been blowing up on social media. What have you heard about Gianluigi Donnarumma?
There's just been some explorative talks, but nothing concrete, and I don't think Juventus will pursue that. Basically, because of his salary fee, which is through the roof, or will be through the roof, and the fact that I personally think that if he leaves PSG, which I consider a big option, is that he'll replace my Belgian friend Thibaut Courtois at Real Madrid. And let's be honest here, if you have the chance to play for Real Madrid at this point, or Juventus, and you have no preference for either team, I think 90% of the people would pick Real Madrid. So I can't see Juventus pursuing this and blowing up their budget just to get Donnarumma.
Yeah. And I think, on the previous page, we had talked about Di Gregorio, and I think there would have to be some more interest or movement there to free up that spot. Let's talk about a player that's been, I think, linked with Juventus on and off over the year, Dan Ndoye from Bologna.
Yeah, Dan Ndoye from Bologna is really somebody, I mean, to me, a potential very good player. And also for Tudor, this is one of the demands between hyphens that Tudor has asked. But Bologna, being Bologna, asking a whole lot of money for this player, as they did in previous years with Calafiori and whatever. So I think that's going to cool down a bit. But, it's something to keep an eye out for as well, because you never know what the dynamics or the change in dynamics will bring.
All right, this is one of the names that we had on the last episode. Maxime de Kuiper has of Club Brugge has cooled off slightly. Why is that?
That's basically due to the fact that nothing happened ever since our last podcast. So it would be very, very cheap and very journalistic of me to say, "Oh, this or this happened." No, there hasn't been any pursuit, any communication. It's basically put a bit on standby because the priorities lie elsewhere. But it could rekindle like from one moment to the other. And I think he's heavily linked with the fact that Cambiaso leaves or not. I don't know why, but my sources indicated that he's Cambiaso dependent for some reason.
Gotcha. Well, the next two names were really surprising to me when you said add them to the list. We have two Deportivo de La Coruña players, Yerme Hernandez and David Mella. Why are they here?
Yeah, that's the same question literally that I asked my sources, and it's pretty easy to explain because in the Comoli list, Jeremiah was highly regarded. Of course, a transfer from Deport to Toulouse would be something that would be fairly unbelievable. But now the managers of Hernandez and Mella reached out to Juventus and a couple of other teams. And at that point, it really sparked the interest of Juventus. Also because of the buying price and the salary price. And there we go again with the whole Moneyball aspect, players that are fairly young, that can develop, that can generate high value, whether it be in money or it be in performances. So this is something to keep an eye out for. I honestly believe that together with Leone Coppola, these two are the type of transfers that are indicative of how we want to rebuild this Juventus squad.
When you say sparked Juventus' interest, I mean you're talking Comoli, right? When he was tantalized by this potential opportunity.
Yeah, and I won't go into much detail because my source asked me to not elaborate too much on that. But from what I've heard is that Comoli has like this huge list that he finds very valuable, and he keeps going back and forth with Chiellini at this point because there's nobody else.
There's nobody else.
There's nobody else to keep the dialogue up with except maybe the janitor, but I doubt that he'll be knowledgeable about this. But so it's a back and forth about these things. But like I said last episode, again, Alcon made it very clear. I want the structure in first. And a lot of players, a lot of teams now are very much under pressure because of this deadline from June 1st to June 10th prior to the World Cup or first. But Juventus is not playing into that. They want quality. They want to spend what they need to spend, but they want to do it in a cohesive, concise manner. And they want to do it where the whole board agrees on something so that we can't single out any individuals afterwards saying, oh, but you choose that player. So basically it was your fault and going back and forth. So it'll be a long transfer window.
So would it be fair to say that other than our loans, which probably require a little bit more immediate attention, all Kaboli and Keeley and the folks we do have in the building are doing a sort of forming a queue and priming those relationships, penning to the filling out the leadership group for us to then start executing on some of those deals?
Yeah, it's fair? It's sort of a casting. You see, they're trying to see from what angle they can pursue certain players and why they should pursue certain players. And a key part here, because people are fairly negative about this whole new Comoli era and what have you, and I can understand them. But what we need as Juventus fans to basically realize at this point is that we are not doing things haphazardly. There is a vision, there is an idea, there is a structure that will be put in place. And whether it be right decisions, wrong decisions, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But there's a process to all of this, whether, with regards to our past, it was like, here, you have the keys to Continassa, here's my checkbook, do whatever you wish, talk with the coach, see what he likes, and, spend my money. Now it's more long-term and vision-driven. And this is also why Tudor isn't that included in talks about new players, which for somebody like Tudor is very, 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 how shall I put it, frustrating. And that is also one of the reasons why I personally feel that if Tudor doesn't pull out a hell of a World Cup, we'll probably part ways.
And he's shown in his previous, managerial career that if he doesn't get the assurances and the treatment that he wants from management, he's gone. And I think that's fair, to be honest, right? Nobody wants to be pigeonholed into a position where they don't feel they can be successful. So we'll keep a close eye on that. I think we've covered everything we wanted to today, but we will continue these episodes coming. All listeners, viewers, we really appreciate you. We really appreciate how much feedback that y'all have provided. Please keep it coming. Hit us up on Instagram and at Turn Giants. Let us know what you think. We'll try to get a little bit more posts there to engage with you in different ways as well. But in the meantime, and until we do this again, thank you, Frederick. Thank you to all viewers, listeners, and as always, Forza Juve.